Christopher Rufo is the journalist who initially broke the story about Disney's Reimagine Tomorrow conference, where one executive was saying they intentionally insert gay themes into children's entertainment. But now he's revealed a new, never-before-seen clip of Bob Iger essentially admitting to making Disney into his political weapon after the events of January 6 in 2021. This is from, I guess, a Zoom call. It looks like it's from inside the company, and he has insiders in Disney who are providing him this information.
In 2021, he wasn't in charge, but he would have been advising Bob Chapek.
This was during Bob Chapek's reign as CEO, but yeah, Bob Iger was still involved. So here's the exclusive. In January 2021, Disney chairman Bob Iger told employees he was committing the company to taking a stand on politics because of January 6, then praised himself for making Black Panther, which he said was an example of diversity and inclusion.
He's like, well, maybe we got complacent because we made Black Panther.
Let's see the clip.
Let's watch the clip here,
in
guys.
all of its glory. Let's see it.
I mean, Bob has talked about this eloquently.
His stupid cardigan.
CEO. I'll say a couple of things about it. You know, we've tended to shy away from politics. And in doing so, I think we've shied away from talking about issues that aren't political at all, like the issues that we're talking about today. Because we believe in doing so, maybe it looks like we're taking a stand. Well, in that reality, we should be taking a stand. By the way, I take responsibility for this. I was CEO for 15 years. And so I manage the company's public-facing processes and how we were portraying ourselves. And I think that we have to be less cautious, as Bob, I think, was just alluding to, about such things and not be concerned, like just commenting about what happened in Washington last week. That's not political on our part at all. We know that what we saw was fundamentally wrong and that it was rooted in hatred and disrespect and contempt and intolerance. And we should feel free as a company to comment about that without retribution. And another thing I want to say that I've learned these last 9 to 12 months is, I'm very proud of a lot of the work we've done in terms of diversity and inclusion on screen. When we did Coco, for instance, at Pixar, a great example of that, or Tiana, or of course Black Panther is one of the great examples of that. I allowed those things to make me feel a bit complacent in a sense. It's not that I wanted to be that way, but I thought, wow, we did Black Panther. How great are we? And it caused me to not focus as much as I should have on the culture of the company and the environment and in the voices that were telling those stories as opposed to just how they were being portrayed on the screen.
The worst thing I ever did was I did something so right that it made me complacent. That's what he's saying.
He is literally the archetype of a white liberal clapping, patting themselves on the back for giving Black people a movie. He's so detestable, especially because he doesn't look evil. He doesn't look as evil as these other executives.
Yeah, it's very hard to find a photo of him where he looks particularly. There's a couple.
He's always very composed.
Yep. I mean, but that's what people
very
say,
smiley.
right? Like the CEO who's the best at his job is the one who can hide the things that the company is doing
inconspicuous
wrong.
Until something like this comes out. And we've gotten 3 years past when this happened, J6 and this dreaded Zoom call, and he's learned his lesson the hard way.
There's a $20 one here from Gordon Shumley. Says Lana Del Rey is not the true tour tortured artist poet or tortured poet. That would be Bob Dylan. Oh wait, Bob Dylan is just a poet, and I'm the one who is tortured when I'm forced to hear his music. I'll see myself out. Yeah,
was that an own on Bob Dylan?
I'm kind of obliged to defend Bob Dylan because he's from Minnesota. So,
oh come on. There are plenty of people from Minnesota you wouldn't defend.
I like his song Hurricane, the one about the boxer. Not the last verse, but I like that song. Okay, so here's the thing about Bob Iger. He's lying. He's lying, saying that they suddenly decided to do this in 2021. If you guys remember, when Georgia was proposing, was going through their heartbeat bill, they were like, you know what, we might have to rethink about filming things here in Atlanta because you guys want to have a bill about abortion.
Well, did they follow through on the promise to boycott filming in Georgia?
They still film in Georgia.
So that was just posturing.
They threatened, right? They threatened to try and get them to back down. So even by threatening, it's a political act. Even by saying, we're going to talk about it, that's a political act. It's not just that. We had the tweet from Peachy Keenan, who says, when I was at Disney, there was a project to remove all gendered language from Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo princess salons at the park. We were no longer allowed to refer to girls as princesses. This was in 2018 or 2019. And this goes back,
non-binary royalty.
Yes, correct.
This was in 2018 and 2019. Obviously, the woke agenda at Disney has been going on for longer than just since January 6th going forward. Anyone who's been paying attention, that's obvious. But he also added, it's quite interesting to see the precise moment that Disney went explicitly political. J6, the chairman finally summoned the courage to take a stand, but hubris got the better of him. Business skill does not directly translate into political skill, as the company found out. I see the pattern quite often. Businessmen are titans in their domain, in which quantity rules, but they find themselves out of their depth in the political domain where quality rules. There is no balance sheet in politics. The real measure is created and then contested.
Agreed? Do you think so?
I mean, Bob Iger definitely effed around and found out.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what he's doing, and then DeSantis slapped him in the face.
Most of this stuff doesn't matter anyways. One of the things that we keep talking about is look, as bad as these movies are that they're making these days, as little money as they're making on them, they're subsidized by the parks, which do still make tons of money. Mm-hmm. Right? But
they started with wokeness in the parks as well. That's not a safe haven from what they put on screen.
No, not
It's
at all.
everywhere. It's in every facet of their business. He also posted another exclusive from 2021 when Bob Chapek announced that the company would create a racial quota for its charitable giving and spend at least $1 billion on diverse suppliers, a euphemism for race-based discrimination against white and Asian-led firms.
Let's watch this clip here.
Bob, I'm curious, the other Bob, this is a bit confusing. We all know money talks, and so many companies put funds towards social justice efforts after George Floyd's murder. And we all know the impact that COVID has had on Disney's businesses.
Just remember that Disney at this time had furloughed thousands upon thousands of workers as their executives all got enormous bonuses. Just as an aside.
And yet, I'm wondering what your thinking is in our overall commitment and investment in the social justice space in terms of philanthropy.
Sure. I really think of it, I guess, in two different ways. Number one is the financial commitment that you referenced, Juju. And we're addressing that in the...
If they ever make a movie about this guy, Dean Norris from Breaking Bad will end up having to play him.
True.
Yep.
Number of different ways. By the end of this year...
But he looks so much cooler than Bob Chapek.
It's kind of like, either Dean Norris or Michael Chiklis will have to play this guy in a movie.
We'll have to put Dean Norris on estrogen.
Yes.
Of our charitable giving will be directed to underrepresented communities, including a new program that invests in underserved youth and hopefully helps create a new generation of diverse storytellers and innovators. Also, I just recently approved a plan to ensure that we reach at least $1 billion in annual spend with diverse suppliers, which nearly doubles our current investment with the diverse community. And while I think those types of things are really important, I firmly believe that the multiplier effect, the leverage, if you will, that we can have with our content far outreaches and will outlast any check that we can write of any amount. We have more influence through the stories we tell and how we tell them than any check that we can possibly write. And as you saw during the slew of announcements that we made at our Investor Day, we're not only increasing the pace of creating new content, as Bob had mentioned, but also increasing the diversity of creators and themes within that content that Carlos and others have talked about today. And I think it's important to realize that what people see reflected on the screen through our experiences and our work have an impact on how they then see themselves and the people around them. And so our stories have a lot of real impact, probably greater than any of us even probably realize.
Okay, so all of that corporate synergistic language was kind of a doozy, but I want to emphasize that quote. We have more influence through our storytelling than any check we could possibly write.
He's right.
And someone in the chat said Chapek was just Bob Iger's puppet. Like Bob Iger was in the background pulling all the strings. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that Chapek came from the parks, right? And Iger obviously was a far better strategist when it came to how he ran the company. I would imagine that he had a lot more sway than people are willing to admit, which makes perfect sense considering he ended up coming back and taking back control of the company. I don't know how common that is. How common is it for a CEO to step down and then come back as CEO again, especially for a company the size of Disney? But the tacit admission that the stories are far more influential than any of the money. As we know, look at every war that this country has used money to fight. The war on terror, the war on drugs, all of things, the war on poverty. It doesn't do much in the end. The message is far more wide-reaching.
Yeah, with this topic about this radio station not playing Beyonce songs, I said don't assign malice where ignorance is a better explanation. But for this, don't assign ignorance where malice is a better explanation. And it's also right here. We already have the proof. You can't tell us that we're crazy for seeing the messaging and the content. We're not seeing things that aren't there. We're just using what's being sold to us, the products being sold to us as proof. And this Zoom call was just a confirmation of what we already knew about Disney and what was going on behind the scenes.
And the funny thing is you're going to be gaslit. You're going to be gaslit by people telling you you're crazy, nothing has changed. This is one of those things I always point out to you is look, I'm always trying to see is this part of my echo chamber or is it actually like this? And sometimes I can gaslight myself into thinking it's not that bad. You're just kind of overstimulated with information, right? You're over reading into things. You're reading too much into things. That's not the case here. Mm-hmm. All the evidence is to the contrary. The problem is, and I think Tim has talked about this before, the hardest part, if you're talking to someone about all these things, it's very hard to remember exact dates. It's very hard to remember exact quotes. We talked about the Reimagine Tomorrow thing. I don't remember the name of the lady who gave that seminar, but I know that it happened, right? Mm-hmm. That's the hard part is people are going to tell you you're crazy. You're not crazy. This stuff is actually happening, and they are using their company, the size of their company, the influence, the reach they have as a political weapon to push an ideology that they believe is one that the public needs. And that very many people, a lot of people are clearly saying, we don't want this. We don't need this in our lives, as the movies show, as the sales of the movies show.
Address that one detail, though. The woman who said that the brand needs to emphasize LGBTQ content in the Reimagine Tomorrow conference said it's because Gen Z is queerer than other generations, which statistics bear that out.
Yep.
Her name is Carrie Burke, the president of Disney General Entertainment Content, suggesting that it made sense for the business to push for more inclusivity, saying, my son texted me this morning, Gen Z is 30 to 40% queerer than other generations, so Disney better get with it.
I love the idea that they think that that's not going to have an effect on birth rates.
She's the one who has a pansexual child, a gay child, a trans child, all of these different gay children.
Unknown. It wasn't Victoria Alonso. Victoria Alonso was Marvel and was in charge of their visual effects, and of course she had a lot to do with it. But this was somebody very specific, and it wasn't a front-facing company member. It was a DEI/HR person, and I didn't remember her name.
Well, it's this president of general entertainment content at Disney, not even a DEI executive. And she also said, I'm here as a mother of 2 queer children, actually. 1 transgender child and 1 pansexual child. Mm-hmm. So that's the type of person we're dealing with behind the scenes. Also, we didn't get to covering this last week, but thank you. Disney's moving their to an animation studio that's based in Vancouver to make Moana's sequel.
Yep.
And I didn't realize at first why that might be relevant. Film Threat reported it because that was like one of their predictions that came true. But the theory here is that they're outsourcing the animation studio to get out of the insulated woke environment in Burbank, California, where Disney is located. And somehow they'll be insulated from the wokeness at this other location, which I think is ridiculous. I mean, this is all communicated by Zoom and email anyway. So,
but
that's not really an optimistic.
It's going to be cheaper to animate.
It's about cost.
Vancouver.
It's about cost cutting, basically.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.